zoos, Chinese giant pandas are the most sought after and loved animals on Earth. They're also the most difficult to get. What did it take for Zoo Atlanta in Atlanta, Georgia, to create its award-winning panda exhibit?
Well, anyone who thinks it was difficult and complicated to get the Olympics to Atlanta just doesn't know much about what it takes to get pandas to Atlanta.
Luckily, former President Jimmy Carter, the most famous man in Georgia, lent a hand. His foreign policy experience helped bridge the gap between the United States and the Chinese government. And in the spring of 1998, the Chinese government finally agreed to send 2 of its giant pandas. For Zoo Atlanta, this was just the beginning of its greatest challenge. Building a habitat for the pandas with the shortest deadline imaginable. At the time, only 2 other zoos in the United States have been able to secure pandas, and for good reason. There are only about 1,500 wild pandas left on the planet, and they only exist in China, where each individual panda is a national treasure.
Well, I'll tell you, it was difficult and controversial to get pandas. It took me personally 10 years to go through this morass of bureaucracy and all the challenges and the difficulties, and believe me, they were real impediments, working with 2 entrenched bureaucracies.
Fortunately, Dr. Terry Maple was well suited for the task at hand. It was his love of Chinese giant pandas that inspired him to bring them to Zoo Atlanta. At the time, he had been zoo director for 18 years. But even with all his experience, for Dr. Terry Maple to bring pandas to Zoo Atlanta would be the challenge of a lifetime.
But I never wavered. I always knew we could do this, and I knew in the end that it would have a tremendous effect on the credibility of this zoo, on the reputation of this zoo, and on the opportunity for this zoo to do something which is, I think, one of the most important conservation projects in the world today.
With such a massive effort by everyone at the Atlanta Zoo to get the pandas here, they could only hope the bears' unique personalities would shine through. And this is one charismatic couple with exceptional credentials and serious star power. Both bears were born in 1997 at the research base for giant panda breeding in Chengdu, China. The female Lun Lun was born on August 25th, achieving notoriety when a Taiwanese rock star adopted and named her. The male Yang Yang, which means little sea, was born on September 9th. Both are Virgos, vegetarians, and, well, very...
lovable. About as lovable as any creature on this earth.
Lovable, but not always the most graceful of creatures. Now that the pandas were coming, it was time to build the ultimate habitat for Lun Lun and Yang Yang. But much to the surprise of Zoo Atlanta, construction would wind up being an even bigger problem.
I had actually been here a month when the zoo director called me in and said, there's a set of plans upstairs. You need to go ahead and modify those and get that built just as fast as you can.
Steve Marshall has worked with animals for over a decade and is now Zoo Atlanta's chief operating officer. His passion and love of pandas is apparent. The challenge he faced was how could he ensure that the panda exhibit be the best there is with an unbelievably short deadline.
The contractor told us that we could build this in a little over a year. We needed to do it within 7 months. So I was the team leader for the construction project, and we got everybody in the room that we needed to talk to. We got education, there was maintenance, we got horticulture, of course the keeper staff.
Building teamwork is one thing, but building a state-of-the-art exhibit required unrelenting attention to detail, whether for the comfort of the pandas or for more aesthetic reasons. Luckily, there was no one more qualified to get the job done than Bill Cooper.
Dr. Terry Maple gave us some guidelines, basically said, you know, you've got 9 months to do this exhibit, and pandas are going to be here. So we had to really burn the midnight hour, so to speak.
Bill Cooper is the Director of Facilities and Construction. He's devoted years of his life to giant pandas. His task was to build an Asian exhibit in Georgia that looked and felt like China. The the challenge was that he had to do it on a very limited budget. The ultimate zoo habitat would be a breathtaking 1¼ acres of panda paradise, featuring an elaborate outdoor viewing area, 2 climate-controlled day rooms, and an extensive research center. But with such a short time frame to build a habitat, the most cost-effective and efficient way to put in all the natural features like rocks and trees would be to simply create them yourself.
These artificial rocks are really something that's amazing to see built. They take these large rods and they bend them into the shapes based on pictures that they use, and then they cover them with mesh. Then they have a machine that shoots kind of a slurry of concrete and fiberglass on them. Then later they come back with trowels or even dental tools, and they put the little cracks in, and then we bring artists in to paint them so that they look like natural rocks.
As the final months count down and the deadline draws near, the workers have to pick up the pace. Then, with just 1 month left to go, the Chinese government decides to send the pandas early. How will the zoo staff be able to finish the habitat under this new impossible deadline? Find out when Ultimate Zoo returns.